Hi everyone. Oh, I've got my screen up already. I am super excited to have an amazing guest today. So Salma, please introduce yourself because you've got an amazing YouTube channel, amazing Twitch stream, and you do so many exciting things. So please let us know about the exciting things that you do.
Thank you, Eddie. So hi, everyone. I'm Salma. You might know me as White Panther already, or whitep4nth3r if you use a screen reader, which I'm very passionate about, and accessibility and stuff. So I'm a developer advocate for Contentful. And if you've not heard of Contentful, it's a headless CMS that gives you a GraphQL API and a REST API and loads of open source tools to help you with your workflows and to help you build really great stuff. And we've got loads of starters. We've got an active community of people who are making examples for different projects with different frameworks. You can use whatever technology you want with Contentful, which is so great. And so I also, as you said, I stream on Twitch. I do that very regularly. I actually got myself into developer relations after I started streaming during the pandemic. I used to be a lead engineer with a front end specialism, and the higher you go up in tech, the less code you do. And I wanted to carry on coding. That's why I got into tech. Fun fact, also, I'm a qualified music teacher, and I also used to be a comedian.
That's why you're such a good live streamer. That explains it. Okay, that's answered a lot of. I understand a lot. Okay, I need to get better.
I am, and I love being able to teach people using my teaching experience through tech as well, rather than just music. And I'm still a musician now. I actually did a music stream with my husband for our 10-year wedding anniversary in May, but I don't do them very often, so don't think that's going to be a regular thing. But it's a lot of fun. I love streaming. I love being part of a huge developer community. Oh, another fun fact, I just won the Jamstack Community Creator of the Year award at Jamstack Conf, which is really such an honor to get that award.
That is amazing. And on a little side note, could you explain a bit about what is Jamstack? So a lot of people seem to get a bit confused about what it means. So if you don't mind, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so Jamstack is because it's changed a lot since it first came about in about 2015. It used to be JavaScript APIs and markup, and that was it. And it was about building static sites, delivering HTML, plain HTML, statically generated documents to your browser, to your users, which made it super fast. And then some interactivity was added after the fact with JavaScript in the browser. But it's so much more than that now. It's not just JavaScript APIs and markup. It's a whole ecosystem of microservices and little tools and other services that you can plug into your websites. And also, websites on the Jamstack are not just static either. And this is a really important thing to remember when you're dealing with Next.js. Yes, Next.js is a static site generator first, but there are also some very flexible data fetching options. You can render your pages on the server at request time if you need dynamic data. You can render your pages on the client as you would with a React site, for example. But there's also some really clever stuff which we could get into, such as incremental static regeneration, which is based on a caching method called stale while revalidate. And what that does is Next.js will check the validity of your data on one request. And if it's out of date, it will build it on the server in the background and again statically generate that page view. So this is why I love Next.js, because of the power of the different data fetching options compared to just a bog standard static site generator that came around in the mid 2010s. And I think it's really exciting, and it paves the way for lots of optimizations where your data is concerned, depending on what you're building.
Wow. Okay, I learned a lot in that. That's an amazing explanation. And I think so many, Luca, I think I've pronounced it right, says best explanation ever. Emma, hi Emma, awesome to have you here. Awesome to see lots of regulars as well. And it looks like Emma voted for you in that category as well, Emma. Which is awesome. So it's great to see. And we have Rossano, who I saw in London a week ago. So it's great to meet people in person in real life. And they like your tattoos. I thought of getting one, but then I saw there's a needle involved and ran out the room quite fast.
It does hurt.
And also I saw someone asking about your green screen. Yes, we have no green screens today because as great as StreamYard is, doesn't really support like true green screen. So yes, no green screens today. Awesome to have everyone here. Lots more people joining. This is great. I'm super excited to learn so much about Next.js, Contentful, and how we can do it. And so what is our plan? So if I remember correctly, and Salma, correct me if I'm wrong, we are looking to kind of do an alternative site to our link-free project. And for those of you who don't know, the link-free project, actually, let me bring that up on the screen. But our link-free project is a Linktree open source alternative. And we've done it with React. And it's quite basic, but yeah, we call the JSON. Let me bring it up on the screen and I can show people. And we're apparently going to rebuild that. And I'm super excited because that sounds really exciting. So this is our link-free project. Let me share a link to it in the chat as well. And if I bring up the site, it's only a few weeks old, but there's lots of forks and stars. There's been lots of community contributions. And for example, there's this. If I search for me and then I have mine, this is my unique link. And this brings up my links that I've added into the JSON file or in the repo. And then this is kind of like underneath it is like the polywork open source alternative where you have your milestones. And actually I need to add another one for the EdiHub community because we just won an award by GitHub for being, I can't remember the exact words, but the community award. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you very much. That was because of all the awesome people that are here, really not because of me. I just started the conversation. So yeah, so where shall we start? We're going to start right at the beginning. I haven't signed up for Contentful. I haven't created a folder. I haven't created the project. We're going to do everything right from the beginning.
Okay. Now, one disclaimer about this is that this is not intended to replace this project because if it's built with Contentful and you want people to contribute to it, you'd need them to have access to that Contentful space. And, you know, if you're adding hundreds and hundreds of people to that space, it might get a little bit difficult. But what I wanted to demonstrate here is if you have a huge JSON file, which is what you're dealing with in the front end of Linktree right now, it can get a little bit overwhelming. And so if you have more complex data structures, this is something that can really help make the management of that content easier, especially if you have separate editors and separate developers in a production type of application. So head on over to contentful.com, which also interesting. Contentful.com is built with Gatsby and Contentful and is hosted on Netlify as well. So we use our own products to build our own things. If you go over to sign up for free in the top right, and you can sign up with GitHub.
I'm just going to do that. I do everything via GitHub. Let's do it. It wants access to my bank details. Yes, take it all. No, I'm just joking. It's great. I only just wanted email and your public information, which I think is just awesome.
And also, we're going to obviously be well away on the free tier of Contentful here. The free tier of Contentful is actually really, really generous. You can view the technical limits of Contentful as well if you wanted to compare the different tiers. But the free tier of Contentful is going to be absolutely enough for this. And it's enough for so many different personal projects. I use the free tier of Contentful from my website, and I'm never going to get close to exceeding any limits on that.
Awesome. So I just hit sign up.
Yep.
It does say
I think you might have to choose your job title and field.
Oh, that's fine.
At this point.
That's okay. It's interesting how it says sign up with.
Yeah, I know. We're working on that.
Yeah, okay,
click on the blue button.
Okay, it's not just me then. I was just thinking, wait a second. I'm a bit tired.
Sorry, you need to put your company in as well.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Oh. Okay. Can't be blank. Done.
There you go.
We're good. I didn't want to do this beforehand. I want everyone to see, me struggle and so forth. What do I want to use Contentful for? Let's have a look. I don't know yet. Are you happy with that? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. What's the reason you signed up? Salma told me to.
Yeah, other. Here we go. Wait a second. Other live stream with Salma.
Perfect.
What was the one reason? Oh no, what do you want to build? I've got it the wrong way around. I'm doing terrible. Let's just move on.
Never mind.
Here we go.
Oh, good. I haven't seen this screen before because I haven't signed up to Contentful since January.
Not at all. Here we go. I really have no clue. I don't even know what my name is.
Okay, here we are. So you are in a blank space, right? And I want to first of all go over to settings. So a space in Contentful is, think of it as like a space for a project. So you can have multiple spaces in an organization if you wanted to just have one account. So in one of my accounts, I have 3 different spaces for 3 different websites. So that's what a space is. It's like where you would hold a project's worth of data, basically. So if you go over to settings,
Yep.
and go into general settings. And here you can change the space name, which you could call link free.
Okay.
Or something like that. That's just kind of an internal thing. The space ID is going to become important later. If you click on the rename space button, that will rename your space.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create what is called a content model, which is going to hold all of the data about how we want to structure our data that we're going to get on the front end. So if you go to the content model tab, okay, so it all starts with a brilliant content model. A content model structures and organizes your content. It's made up of content types. Get started by adding the first one. Now, I think we're only going to need one content type on link free because it's just going to be like a person entry or something. Let's have a look at your JSON. Actually, that's a really good idea.
Let's have a look at the JSON and people can see. So everyone watching, if you haven't added yourself to this project yet, you really should. And again, I'm just going to pick myself as an example, and this is what the JSON looks like. So the required ones are name, bio, and avatar link, and then links. And then if you want the polywork stuff, you can do milestones as well, but that's
okay. Optional. I'm just going to get this page up because this is super useful. And this is a really nice way also. Now, what we could do as well if we wanted to go like level 10 on this, we could actually create some migrations that would take the shape of this JSON and add it into Contentful without having to click about in the UI, but we won't do that today. Because that's not what this is about.
Sorry, wait a second. That's really interesting. I love database migrations, and most people don't use them, which is always worrying. So you're saying that we can do that with Contentful? Or we won't do it today, but it is possible, is what I mean.
So there's an open source Contentful migration package, which gives you programmatic access to the content management API. Now, one of the reasons why I generally don't use the content management API on streams is because if you expose the access token for the management API, then people have access to manage your content. All of the API keys we're going to use today are read-only. They're just going to be the delivery access tokens. But yes, Contentful offers you a way to import data and export data on the command line and with a CLI, and then also run migrations on your data and add stuff in as well. So what you could technically do is take this JSON file, rewrite it in the format that Contentful expects as an import, and then import it, or do it via migration. There's a couple of different ways you could actually do it, which is cool. So I'm just going to get this up. So let's create a content type. What do you want to call this? Do you want to call it a person, an entry, or something else?
What should we call it? Let's have a look. What have we called it in here? I think we've just called it user.
User's fine, yeah.
I think user. Okay, so user.
Cool. And then what it does is it will automatically create you an API identifier, which is what we're going to use later. You don't need to remember it, and I'll show you why later, because we're going to use the GraphQL Explorer, which will hold your hand all the way through. Yeah. So create that.
Okay.
And now we're going to add some fields to our user content type. So let's first of all add the name. So if you click on the add field button, now this is what's really cool about Contentful as well. You get lots of different field types that have lots of different ways of validating the field type, and you can add default values into the field type, and you can do all sorts of fancy things. So let's just choose text for the name. And here you can either choose short text or long text, which would be markdown, but we're just going to choose short text for the name, and you can just call this name.
I have a question. Do you know what database they use to store all this different types of data?
I don't actually know. I think there's a mixture, and I think Ruby on Rails is involved at some point.
Got you. Okay. Cool.
So click Create and Configure. So here is where you'll be able to specified the options for this field. So the one that I really like on this is, you're hovering over it already, is this field represents the entry title. And you'll see that when you start adding user entries, if you click this, their name will appear in the table on the content screen that I'll show you later. So that's really cool. And if you go to validation, you said that you wanted this field to be required.
Yes.
You can also choose unique, so that you don't have two names that are the same as well. You can, if you have some UI requirements as well, you can limit the character count so that people don't put a sentence in and things like that. You can do all sorts of stuff. The default value tab is a new thing that's just been recently released, where if you have a field type where generally your editors are adding things over and over again and they're not unique, you can pre-fill it for your editors as well. And if you click on the appearance tab, you can choose how you want this to appear. So what I really love using, for example, is the URL appearance if I'm adding a YouTube URL into the field, because it automatically gives you a preview of it. And it also, if you add a URL in with an open graph image, it will show that in the UI as well, so you know that you've got the correct value. So click confirm. Now, before we go to the other fields in the JSON, I want us to create a slug field. Because on your link free, you have / and then a slug to a user. Yes. So I want us to be able to create dynamic page routes with Next.js by a slug, but we can also automatically generate a slug. So if you choose add field, yes, Carl, this is a headless CMS with a REST API and a GraphQL API. So if we choose text again.
Just to let you know that Carl has built at the Eddie Hub, like our API, our Eddie bot, like so many things. And she got me into React. So my exposure into React and Prime React was Carl's fault. So big shout out to Carl.
Great work. We choose text for the slug again.
Text, okay.
And again, just a short text, and we'll call this slug.
Slug.
And if you click create and configure again, and we want to make sure that this one on the validation tab is required and unique as well. Yeah. Now, if you go to the appearance on this one, you can choose slug. And if you scroll down slightly, you can choose to generate the slug from the entry title. The title is the default one, but also you can choose whichever one you want. So if you click on name there, so whenever you enter a new name in the UI, it will automatically generate you a slugified version. So it will get rid of all of the invalid characters that might be in the URL, in the name. So click confirm on that one. Next, let's do bio. Now, I wonder, do you want Markdown for this, or do you want just a line of text?
What does everyone think watching? That's quite interesting, because it could get quite big if it was Markdown. It would push all the links down, and Linktree doesn't do that. It could be better. We have to be exactly the same. I don't know. What does everyone think in the chat? And while we're having a think, Salma, if you wouldn't mind answering a couple of questions. So Carl asks, Carl says it's a bit like Strappy. I don't know what Strappy is. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, Strappy is another headless CMS. It's a little bit different in the way that I think Strappy offers you a way to build an API as well. And Contentful, just you store your data in Contentful and you use our APIs to get your data, I think.
Got you. Okay. And another question by Prathamesh. Hi, awesome to have you here. What does headless CMS mean?
So back in the old days, a CMS, which stands for Content Management System, would actually be the database, the UI for adding your content to the database, and then also a templating system on the front end. So everything would be together, and you'd be locked into using that framework with old style CMSs. Now, a headless CMS means it doesn't have any of that around it. It doesn't come with a front end. It just comes with a content management system, and you can choose whatever front end you want to build with it. You can use the APIs to get your content to anything that has an HTTP connection. You can put your content from Contentful on the sides of buses, or on billboards, or on Apple Watches, or on anything like that. And it just abstracts out the that top layer where you are free to do whatever you want with it.
Nice. Okay, so which one should I pick? I'm thinking just normal text, I think. For
Yeah,
this
let's
one.
do that. Normal text. It's limited to 255 as it is, so I think that's fine.
Okay, we can keep it.
And then we'll call that bio.
Create and configure.
Yep. And I guess, do you want this one to be required? Do you need it to be required?
No, I don't think it needs to be required. No. So it doesn't need to be required. Doesn't need to be unique. We don't need a limit on it.
No.
All good, I think.
Yeah. Let's just choose that one. Yep. Okay, and then next we have links. So this is fun. So now, because your links are an array of objects. Now, normally, if you were going to reuse different types of links across places, you would create a separate content type. This looks like you would create a separate content type to hold a link, but make this field a reference to different links. However, this doesn't make sense because these links are personal to each user. So I don't think I've done this before properly. So let's add a field.
Would it be easy? I've got a suggestion, and I don't know if this is the correct workflow. Would it be a good idea for us maybe to jump to the Next.js part, get these displayed, and then come back to this to enhance it a bit further?
Okay, all right, let's do that then. Name, slug, and bio, and then we can generate the dynamic routes and see it all come together. Okay, so click save on that. Click save on that, and let's add 2 entries, right? Let's add me and you.
Okay.
So let's go to the content tab at the top.
Got you.
And then you want to click add a user.
And then we can add a few people from the audience later on as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do me first because I'm pretty sure I know my name. Bio, founder of EduHub. Okay. Cool. Anything else?
Oh, do you want to just publish that? Do you want to add an image to this content tab?
Oh,
content type, actually. That one's an easy one to do. Click publish on that.
Okay.
And then go back to the content model.
Got you.
And then
click on user.
Yep. And then add field. And this one is a media type field.
Got you.
And we'll just call this avatar. Yep. One file, create and configure. And you can even here on the validation tab, if you wanted, choose the types of media that you will allow. So you can click on the accept only specified file types, for example. Okay. And then because this media field is anything. So if you click on that, you'll see the different types of media that Contentful accepts. You can have a PDF.
Got you.
You can have a video. You can have a spreadsheet, blah, 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 blah. So here you can just tick the image checkbox if you wanted, and then just press confirm on that, and then press save. Thanks, Prathamesh, for your feedback. That makes me feel happy. All right, let's go to the content tab again, and you can add your image.
Go back to mine. Okay, so I can actually do an upload.
So this one's add new media.
I have to find something now. Let's see. Title, I guess title required. Eddie's.
Yes, that's fine. And normally in the description, I generally use the description of the media as my alt text on the front end. So I generally like to put a very descriptive description in there.
That's not very descriptive, but people get the idea. Okay, wow. Okay, there's lots of choices. Link URL. I'm just going to use a link URL. I didn't know that was possible, so that's really good. I think I can just do this. Perfect. So link URL. Do that.
Hey, and you can get mine from my GitHub as well.
Exactly. Cool. Perfect. Okay, that was easier than I thought.
Publish that. And then if you click on the top left back arrow as well, you'll publish the main entry. You'll notice here, you'll see that next to the green button, it says changed in blue. So that tells you when you need to publish it if you want. So it auto saves your changes. So you can go away from this page and open it back up, and your draft changes will still be saved, which is pretty cool as well.
Nice. Okay.
Click publish. And this means you can also fetch preview content or draft content from the API with different API keys as well. If you wanted to create a preview UI for your website and your applications, which I do on my website, so I can preview content before I publish it. That's also cool too.
Nice.
So go back to content, we'll add me.
Okay, add user.
Add me as White Panther.
Now you're going to test
W. You got to do it white with a lowercase p.
Okay, wait a second. Let me get it off Twitter. I think it's so much easier. I can't even spell my own name. Here we go. I want to copy and paste it from here. Okay.
There you go.
And then I will put a capital W.
And then my bio is I help developers build stuff.
Can I copy this as
There
well?
you go. Yeah, copy just the first. Just do the first sentence.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, you go. Okay. That's my bio. Yeah, that'll do. And then you can get my image from my GitHub. I do need a new headshot. It's so out of date.
No, it's good. GitHub. Is it the same username?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so, and then in the selector, I want to choose link, URL, paste. Let's go grab that. Yasun, good question. Does the slug need to be the same as link free? If it was like replacing it and we wanted all the links to work exactly the same, then yes, but it is not going to replace the link free project. This is just giving us a different perspective and idea on way to do things. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same.
Good question.
So yeah, great question. So publish, and then I go back one, and then I
and then you go
again.
Publish. Oh, cool.
Awesome.
So we have now 2 entries on the content tab. So what we're going to do now is, because we're going to use the GraphQL API, I want to show you something really cool that exists in Contentful as well, which is the app framework. So you have the ability to use the open source app framework and open source design system to create your own apps inside Contentful that extend the UI and give extra functionality. And you can also share those with other people as well now. So if you go to the apps tab.
Yep.
And if you click on manage apps, and scroll down, and you'll find the GraphQL logo somewhere, which is pink. There it is, GraphQL Playground. So we're going to install this, and this will allow us to inspect the schema of our data in our space and construct our queries easily. So if you click authorize on that, now one thing you've got to do right now is we need to go and grab an API key. So in a different window, if you click on settings, and in a different tab, open the API keys item.
Do I need to do it off screen?
Nope, that's fine because, yeah, they're read only. So click add API key. Now we're going to grab the preview API key, which ignore that name's fine, can stay like that. So there's the second dotty one down. We're going to use the preview API key for GraphQL, which means that the GraphQL Playground can both read preview content, which is draft unsaved content and saved content. But on the front end, we're going to use the delivery API key. But if you just copy the preview one there and paste that into the Contentful app installation on the other screen. There we go. Paste that in there.
Go away. Thank you. Okay.
And click install in the top right. So what's your experience level with GraphQL?
It is really, really non-existent. I don't have any.
Okay,
I haven't actually played it at all, so I'm super excited.
Okay, so if you just refresh that page 1 second and then click on the apps menu item again and choose the GraphQL Playground menu item. Okay, so the main differences between GraphQL and REST. So Contentful do give you a REST API as well, and they also give you SDKs and client libraries to install via NPM to use in your front ends to make querying the REST API easier. Now with GraphQL, what I like about it is that you don't need any dependencies to make a GraphQL API call. You can just use JavaScript fetch. And what I also like is that you're only asking for the data you want with GraphQL. So if you made a REST API call to your user's endpoint, and I do actually have a blog post about what is a REST API to share with you later if you wanted to show you how, like, it's the resource-based things. You're asking for resources with REST APIs on particular URLs, but with GraphQL, you're querying your whole schema and getting back what you ask for. Now, this playground offers you a really cool way to inspect your schema. So if you click on the schema tab on the right, it's just a tiny little gray tab there, right? So this shows you that you have a user collection inside your space, and it shows you all of the different ways you can query the user collection. If you click on the Docs tab, you can see here that you have assets in your space because you've got some images and media. You've got users and a user collection. So if you click into the user collection here, you can see all of the different, sorry, if you click on user, it makes more sense. You can see that you've got a name, a slug, and a bio, and an avatar, and all sorts of other like internal API things as well. So if you're ever stuck in GraphQL about what's on your content model or what is available for you to query, you can have a look at the GraphQL schema and the docs, and it tells you everything you need to know. But there's more. If you click onto line 2 in the query window in the left.
Oh, yes.
And if you press, yeah, close that one for now. And if you press enter under there, okay, that's fine. If you press Control space.
I'm on a Mac. It's not going to work.
Control space is going to work on a Mac. Oh, but you've got it set
control.
to...
No, sorry, my bad. Space. I did command, my bad. Yeah, okay, cool.
So this is where you can build up your query without even really having to write anything. So we know that we want to query. Let's just first of all get all of the data for both of us. You want to query your user collection because it's an array. You want to get all of the items back. So press enter. And then if you open another curly bracket and press enter and press control space again, you can see what's available on this bit. And we're going to get items because whenever you're querying an array of things, items will come back. If you open another curly bracket again as well, press control space again, you can see now you can choose the name, slug, bio.
If I want a second one, what do I do?
You just press enter, and it's just on the line below.
No
squigglies or anything. No, just that.
Name.
And bio. Let's first of all just press play after you've clicked on bio. Let's press play in the middle, and you'll see that we've got 2 people that come back. And so this is the query that you make on the front end with fetch, and I'll show you how to do that. And you're going to get your JSON back as an object with data.usercollection.items. So the avatar is a slightly different one because it's an image. There are going to be some subfields on the image. So if you press enter underneath bio and type in avatar or do your little control space trick.
I love that control space.
It's amazing, isn't it? It just speeds up your life. And then if you do another open curly bracket and do another control space, you can see the fields available on this image.
Oh, see. Width and height.
So you've got all sorts, width and height, URL. There's a file name. You can also do, we're not going to do that today, but you can do transformations on the image as well, because Contentful's got an images API as well that you can do transformations and things very similar to like what Cloudinary does as well.
Wow, that's cool.
So what we're going to get is we're going to get the URL. We're going to get the description.
Oh, on description, yeah.
Yeah. And because we're going to use next image, we're going to get the height and the width as well, which you'll see why later.
Sorry, which one do we need? I was reading the chat.
Sorry, height and width.
Okay, height and width.
And that should be everything we need. And so if you press play on that,
you
can press play and we have all of the information that we need. So don't get rid of this because we're going to use this in just a moment. And also we're going to generate the dynamic routes for both of our separate pages. We need to make a different query to get as little data as possible, which is just the slugs. So this shows you the power of, rather than with REST having to get all of the user information and then on the front end having to kind of deal with a big chunk of JSON, you can only deal with a tiny little bit. So let's go over to your terminal.
Yes.
And let's create a new Next.js application.
Well, let me make this bigger. It's obviously quite small. How's that, everyone? Hopefully that's a bit better.
Sweet. So I love the fact that you can use npx space
Okay, npx space.
create dash next dash app, and then space, and then the name of the folder that you want to create.
Link-free Next.js.
Sweet. And then if you press enter, what this npx will do, it's like an executable which will download all the dependencies you need and also run npm install, basically.
I thought it might say that. I thought it might. That's fine. I don't think it created it though, did it? Let me just check.
No.
No, it didn't. Okay, cool. So I thought with the capitals it might not allow it. So link-free.
File system errors between Windows and Mac, one of them being case sensitive and one of them being not. I think they're probably trying to prevent that.
Yeah, it's true.
So I was installing those dependencies.
I put my Mac into case sensitive file system. I had a lot of issues. I had to reinstall it and turn that off because it's just not designed for it. And so many things aren't. Okay, should we go into that?
Let's go into it. And I want to show you, first of all, the basic structure of a Next.js application.
Perfect.
So you see we've got our node modules installed. We've got a public folder, which is very similar to the React public folder. So anything you put in that public folder, you can access with a slash. So if you've got static images or your robots.txt or your RSS feed, XML or whatever, that will go into public. You've got a styles folder as well. Now, at the moment, there are two files in here. Globals.css comes with a very minimal CSS reset, which gives you box sizing, border box on everything. I also, if you want to know more about box sizing, border box, I have a talk that I did on that in September for Codeland.
Awesome. And there are links in the description below to, let me just double check. We've got Salma's YouTube and Salma's website, where I'm sure you'll find lots more
Everything
links.
is on my website, yeah.
Perfect. Let me just share that in the chat as well. Sorry, carry on.
You're very good at doing this chatting whilst chatting, because I can't type in chat right now.
I'm so doing such a bad job. And ignore the link that I just shared. It's a YouTube link that's really long, and it just put it into 2 messages. So let me just hit enter, get this, and get the proper link. When I did copy from YouTube, it gave me like the YouTube not bit.ly, like the longly, I guess, the long version. Here we go. This is the link. Do go check out Salma's all her awesome content. Right. Okay.
So just a basic minimal CSS reset, that one. And the home.module.css. So what the module means in that file path is that Next.js comes with CSS modules baked in by default with no extra dependencies. And what CSS modules do is they scope those styles to the component in which they're used. So this means that in the home module, I can use a class container. And also in another component module, I can use a class container, and they won't conflict, and they won't, one won't override the other, because they are scoped as modules to the component that you use them in. So just something to bear in mind. So it comes with, it's great. I also have a lot of experience with styled components, but that's obviously just extra dependencies, and I like to use as few dependencies as possible. And just the fact that Next comes with CSS modules is lovely. So you've got your standard package JSON, which has a list of all your dependencies and git ignore, blah, blah, blah. Now, the pièce de résistance of this is the file-based routing system. So if you open the pages folder, so it's so intuitive. So I still don't know how to effectively use routing with React. It's a minefield, and it seems quite a lot of work for just a very simple add a new page. With Next.js, any JavaScript file or any folder structure that you add to the pages folder, you automatically get a root on the front end. So if you were to add next to the index.js, if you were to add about.js, if you have the correct code on there to make a component, that would give you /about on the front end without any routing nonsense whatsoever.
That's
pretty cool.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. It's worth also mentioning that the API folder in here is a place where you put all of your serverless functions. Now, if you don't know what a serverless function is, that's a function that will run on the server when it is needed. So you can do a lot of back-end things that you don't want to expose to your front end in a more secure way. and it's spun up on your hosting provider service, such as Netlify or Vercel, whenever you need it. And you can access those directly as routes in a browser as well. So if you go to your application /API/hello, that would give you back what the code is in hello.js. The command to run Next applications is npm run dev.
I was about to check the package.json, but I thought I'd try and do it. So it looks like that the start is for production.
Yes.
And then that's for the dev. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And the difference between the dev and the start is that the dev will give you a lot more verbose logging in the terminal, and it doesn't compile everything down into static stuff as it would on a production server after a build. So what are we going to do? You can get rid of the about.js because we don't need that.
Okay.
So first of all, on the index, we are going to make a query to just get all of our data, to show you how simple it is to use fetch to make that GraphQL query. Now, I talked earlier about the different ways that you can fetch data with Next.js. So we're going to look at two of those today. We're going to look at get static props and get dynamic paths. So first of all, what get static props does is at build time, it will call out to the data sources that you define and will run the code and use that data that it gets to build your page statically in the build process. So it's all pre-rendered for you when your users visit your site when it's released into production. So I personally like to write my data fetching functions at the bottom of the file rather than the top. But lots of people have different preferences. So where would you like to write your data fetching functions?
I do it at the top just for kind of convenience of my flow,
Sure.
but I don't think of the performance. I don't mind.
Let's do it. Let's do it at the top. So what we're going to do first of all is underneath line 4, we're going to export an async function get static props, and Copilot is letting you know what that is. And what I'd like to define before I write any of my data fetching logic,
okay,
I like to define what props I'm going to return to my front end. This is a bit like React props. If you're used to React, it's just the data points that you're going to be passing into your component. So we're going to be passing an array of users. So rather than name Next.js, for now, I would just do users, empty array. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. And then how you pass that data into the home component, you can do it in two ways. So on line 13 in the home brackets, you can either write props, which will take in all of the props, and then you can access props.users, or you can deconstruct the props object and just put users in like that. And then users will be available in your front end. I want to show you a cool trick that I learned from Jason Lengstorff last week. If you go into the component and somewhere, if you write, if you do open and close curly brackets,
okay, so
anywhere, you can probably delete all of this first of all.
Let's get rid of some of the extra stuff. We don't need that. Welcome. Okay, we'll leave the welcome because I might use that, but let's get rid of this whole div, I think. Don't need all this.
We get rid of everything.
There we go. Then in the main, what I can do, is this for the list? Should I just make a fake list?
Well, first of all, I was just going to print out the JSON data in a nice way, just so we know we have it. So if you do a squigglies, I call them squigglies, and I try not to call them squigglies to people who don't know what I mean. If you do JSON.stringify,
JSON.stringify,
and then pass in your users, then we should be able to see that as a nice object on the page on the front end when we've got the data. So right now, if you go to localhost 3000 in your browser, you should see an empty array.
Let's have a look. Localhost 3000.
There we go. So we've got our empty array. And if you put something in that array, it will print it out for you nicely, just so people can see what I'm on about.
Okay, perfect.
There we go.
Has also completed it for me.
There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to call out to the Contentful API using fetch. The first thing we need to do, though, is I'd like to set up some environment variables so that we don't have the keys just right there in the text. Next comes with .env built in, so you don't need to install any other dependency. So you can just add in your root a .env file, and we're going to add two values. One of them is space ID.
Like so?
I would normally do them in capital letters with an underscore in between.
Makes sense.
And then equals. And this is found in your general settings area of Contentful.
I think it was link free.
You can even find it in the URL if you wanted. So this is the ID. So if you, first of all, while you're on this page, just copy the delivery access token. That one? Yep. And then call this one access token on the next line down.
And it's okay for it to be public? You don't want me to do it off screen?
No, this is fine because it's read only. And you can also change this later on if you wanted to keep this.
Okay.
And then if you go to settings, there you go. You can copy that one.
Okay.
Cool. Let's save that. All right. You can close that file. And now, as you've just added env variables, you need to stop and start the development server.
Oh, yes. Good point.
I obviously say this because I've forgotten to do that many times. So I now never forget to say it.
That's true. But it's nice that it says loaded. I think before it didn't. So I didn't see that before. And now we're using it. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, so now here comes the skill of me remembering how to do this in one go. So what we're going to do is underneath get static props here, we're going to call out as Contentful. So we're going to do const response equals await fetch. There we go. We can tab that in. And let's get the GraphQL link. So if you go back to the GraphQL playground, you'll find the URL you need to call out to, which is right there. Don't copy the curl, just copy that URL.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
And then what you can do is replace the space ID in that URL with your process.env.space ID.
Got you.
And then put it in backticks.
Yes, that's true. Oh, I want that one. And in here, we called it space underscore ID.
And make sure it's process.env.space ID.
Oh, yes. What am I doing? I was just testing to make sure you're still awake. That's what it was. I'm clearly not. I think that's not correct.
Cool.
Space.
Okay. And the if you do a comma after the URL.
Okay.
The method that we're going to use with fetch is post. That's it. And then we're also going to send some headers in, which are going to be authorized, that one, and this one. My goodness.
Copilot to the rescue.
I think you just called it access token, not Contentful access
yes.
token. It's funny. I feel like when Copilot works like this, I see my own code come out of Copilot as well, because clearly my own code is in there. So, and next we are going to, we're going to be sending a body with the request, which is the next thing. Yep. And we're going to JSON stringify, and a variable we're going to create is query. So just put query in there. Inside the squigglies.
Oh, is it inside the squigglies? Okay.
Yep. And then close the bracket. Okay, so above this, we're going to create a squiggly. Above this, we're going to create const query equals. And then if you start it with backticks, and then you go back to the GraphQL playground and copy that whole query, but not the word query.
Right, got you. Okay.
But you also need the outside squigglies.
Oh, I see. Got you. Yeah, makes sense.
Do you know, I used Copilot for a little bit when it first came out, and then I stopped using it. But I want to use it again because it looks better than when I started using it. It's cleverer.
The more people that have used it, and I know GitHub have been improving it a lot, that it's it has definitely come a long way. But sometimes I feel I get a bit lazy, or I go, that looks correct. Hit tab.
Yeah.
And then there's a mistake in it. or it's not quite exactly, not a mistake, so
Yeah,
that's really wrong,
so
but it's not aligned with my code.
that
I
was
don't
one of the
realise.
reasons why I kind of stopped as well, because I thought people I didn't at the time want to advocate for it, because I thought people could get lazy and not learn stuff and start doing the wrong things without knowing what they were doing. So
Yes.
paste that in there. Cool. That's our query, which is being passed into our response fetch thing. And then after that, what you want to do is, I normally do on line 31 a dot then.
Oh yes, we had a bit of a chat in our community about this. You're right. Some people prefer await with this, but a lot of the official docs do use the then for this section.
Yeah, and then so we've got that, and then users will be response.data.users user collection on line 36.
Oh, sorry, so I don't need this extra.
I don't think, no, I would normally put that line as in users is res.data or response.data.user collection of items. I mean, you can, and that means then users is the response. Up to you.
We'll go with what you were originally saying. Let's go
Okay.
with the expert advice. So what were you saying to change next? Sorry.
So the empty array now is response.data. There you go.
Do I need the items? Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
because that is the array. Shopper says, is Next.js similar to React? Now, Next.js uses React. Next.js is a wrapper around the React framework to offer static site generation and other stuff. So using React inside Next.
It's built on top of it, and I think it's I think it's really, really impressive. Done a great job. And as you probably missed before, but they're talking about routing, how you don't have to add all these routing libraries and try and configure it in your top level component. Next.js does it by the name of the file and the location, which I think is really impressive.
So I think our data now should be available on the front end.
Already?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Look at that. Okay, now I have a little job for you, because I just need to take a 1 minute break.
Sure, of course.
So what we have now is we just have a base API call that we can copy and paste and use everywhere. Normally, if you were making more of a production ready app, you would probably abstract this function call out to a different file to use it once, but we can just copy and paste it.
Yeah.
What I want you to do, so what we're going to do now is I want us to build up the dynamic routes. So I want you to go, whilst I'm away for 1 minute, to the Next.js documentation.
Okay.
And I want you to look up get static paths and see what you make of it. And I'll come back and we'll create those dynamic routes.
Okay, get static path. No worries, take your time. The people in the chat will help me. So everyone help me and let me know what I need to do. Hopefully you're all still awake. I definitely need to watch the VOD. Can't really follow while working. Cool. I should maybe do a video short cut down version of this, but I appreciate you supporting, Carl. It really helps you having it on in the background, helps my stats. So thank you so much. Does React come with .env? No, it doesn't. Next.js does. Next.js comes in with so much, but yeah, React is, I think the reason why everyone likes React is it doesn't come with very much. So it's really, really simple. But then you've got to add a lot on yourself. Yeah, exactly. React went to the gym and became Next.js, which is, kind of still, it's still impressive. And it's probably be adding more features as things go on. React on steroids equals Next.js. Cool. Okay. Oh, that was quick. You are back. I didn't really do anything. Sorry. I was too busy going through the chat.
Forget the docs then. What we're going to do is, now what's really cool about this is obviously we're going to create a dynamic routes to our slugs that we defined on the data, right? Okay. So how we do this is by a very clever way we name our files. So if you open up the Explorer again, and if you, inside the Pages folder, add a file called square bracket slug square bracket.js.
Okay. Like that?
Slug. Slug.
What am I doing? Typo. Sorry. That's an epic fail.
We'll ignore that one.
Sorry, everyone.
Okay. So press enter.
It's next to the letters are next to each other. I could have picked a
That's true,
different
that's
letter
true.
by mistake.
So we're going to just press enter a few times, and we're going to export a default function called user.
Export
default function user. I'd like to make my pages a capital. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
And then brackets, and then squigglies afterwards. We're going to accept a user, so you might as well add that user in there.
Okay, but what about everything else? Yeah, I'll just do.
We're only going to need one user for now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and we're going to return. Might as well tab that.
Oh, my bad. Does that look right? I didn't.
Yeah, why not? Why not? We don't need all these things.
No, we don't need all these things. Make it simpler. Okay, so a user. Let me just end that.
Let's do the JSON stringify user again.
Okay. Oops. So it was.
Which will be a single user. Yeah.
JSON.stringify user.
Okay. So there are two functions we need. We do need to do get static props, which will get the one bit of data for one user. But we also need to run get static paths, which will, for each user, generate a static single page. So if you do export async get static paths. Export async function.
Yeah, my bad. Path. So I'm still laughing at the chat of what happened before. So now how you're holding a straight face. And Carl's comment, we have in our Discord community, we have Alex.js in our Eddie bot, Discord bot, which picks up for rude words. And yes, Alex.js would be freaking me out, giving me warnings right now and so forth. So,
Love it.
Sorry, what was the name of the function? Get
static paths.
Paths. Okay.
Paths.
I can't spell. Okay.
Okay. And what we're going to return from this. This is like my code it's showing me. We don't want to do that right now. Okay. Anyway, okay, you might. This is don't tab that.
Okay,
we're going to return. We're going to return.
Okay.
An object of which has a property of paths, which is an array.
Okay.
And then we're also going to, so ignore that array for now.
Okay.
But you want to close your array with the square bracket. Yep. And then we're also going to add another property, which is fallback. Now, what the fallback does, another great feature of Next.js is, so for example, if you have thousands and thousands and thousands of pages that you want to generate at build time using get static paths, that is going to slow down your build process considerably. So what you can do is you can choose to, say, generate the top 10, 20, 30 pages, and then the others can either have a fallback of true, which will show like a loading component. And if they haven't, if that page hasn't been generated, it can show your loading component, and then the server side will generate that page.
Wow. Okay.
You can choose to use fallback false, which means that it'll just get a 404 if it hasn't been generated, or blocking, where you see nothing, but it still generates the server-side response. So you can either show loading, show 404, show nothing, but still generate it. So there's those three options there. But we just need to use fallback false for this one because there's only two users. Okay.
Yeah.
So the paths array is going to look like this. The paths is an array of objects, which is params. But tab that.
Okay.
Okay, and
it's safer than me typing it, I think.
Yeah. So this is what it's going to end up looking like. There'll be an array of objects with params, which is an object which will have data about the slugs that we've added into Contentful. So I like to always show how this is going to work, because we're going to use the map function to create that thing. Just before we do get the static paths, we're also going to export async function get static props underneath this, which will use then the slug parameter to get one single user. So the params will come into there, and we're going to return props user.
Like so?
Yep. And that can just be user on its own.
Okay.
And then close the squigglies. And so just to outline what we're going to do, in get static paths, we're going to make a call to Contentful that will construct in the GraphQL playground that will just get all the slugs. And then we're going to turn all of those slugs into what the paths property wants. Then in get static props, by the slug that comes in to that one single page, we'll query the GraphQL API to get that one single user. So we're going to write 2 more queries and fetch and do 2 more fetches. So this is what's great about GraphQL. If you go back to the GraphQL Explorer.
Close this one. Here we go.
And now what we want to do, we just want to query for all the slugs. So you can delete everything except for the slug parameter. And if you press play, that's the query we are going to make to inside get static paths. So what I would suggest is copying the initial query from index.js.
Okay, so I could copy the whole fetch.
Yep, copy the whole fetch. We'll do that. And then all we need to do is add a different query inside this.
And I'm putting this in which function? Sorry?
Get static paths. This is just for the slugs.
Yep. And I hit save. And then
so you want to get
need the actual query itself.
The actual query, yes. And this is just going to be, you're just looking at the slugs in this.
Okay.
So Prathamesh is asking, why is the slug.js file written in square brackets? This is because it's going to be a dynamic route, and we're using the function get static paths in this square bracketed file to statically generate more than one file, as many as we need. So now we've got the response, response.data.user collection will have an array with all of our slugs in. So what we now need to do is a different function. I would put a different function above this to, I mean, you could do that. You could do what Copilot just wanted you to do.
Oh, I didn't see what it suggested.
It was right.
Was it?
Yeah.
Data, user collection, items, map. Okay.
No, maybe that, hang on. Was it? Hang on. It's probably not. You're mapping over the items and that is, no, that's wrong. That's wrong because you need an array, right? Ignore that. That. You kind of need that, but you don't really. See, Copilot is so good yet also so bad.
Yes.
Right. So above that, do const slugs equals that's what you want. That's what you want, right? So you've got your slugs, but actually what you want to do is you see the object with the params key. You actually are on line 24.
Yes.
You actually want to make that params open bracket slug. Now the thing is, I'm just going to dictate this to you because it's really complicated.
Okay.
So on just after the arrow, after the fat arrow on line 21.
Yeah. Here.
Add as open squiggly, and then add return. Because you can't do like a quick return on this. You want to do add a return, and then you want to open that's right for now.
Next slide. Yeah. Okay.
And then you want to put squigglies around slug.
Okay.
And then you want to add the params key before slug. So you're returning an array of things that are slug. And then what you can do in your paths, you can paths equals slugs on line 26.
Got you. Okay, I do this a little bit shorthand. I'm going to put.
You can't do it shorthand here because you're really. Yeah, because you're returning an object, and otherwise it goes wrong one level.
Okay, I have a feeling it might work, but okay, we'll do it this way. I'm going to try something. You can try it. We'll try it in a minute. Let's get it working. You're always right. I'm always wrong. Look, I put a G on this, by the way. I was right this time, but it should be with an S. Yes.
But you only want paths to slugs. You don't need all the brackets around it because you've already created your array with the map.
That's true. Yes, that's very true. Okay, so I told you you're always right.
Okay. Right. So now what I would like to do is console log on line 24 what slugs is, just to make sure it's correct.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sounds good.
And what you might need to do, first of all, is on line 34. So this code will run on line 34. You might need to just do user is an empty object. Otherwise, it might not compile.
Okay.
Okay, now have a look at your terminal. And you should see now an array of objects. In the terminal, this will show, not on the client, because it's running on the server.
Oh, I left it in the, here we go.
Okay, if you refresh, if you go to /Eddie Jowd, that's when it will run.
It was hyphen, I think, in this case.
Okay, so it is wrong. So go into the terminal, we'll see what it's console logged as.
Here we go.
Oh, I see. You need to do params slug
there was one more thing, yes.
slug equals slug.
Yes, there was. Because
you need an object around the slug.
If I can do that, that will use the ES6 feature, and that's reloaded.
There we go. I know that
and there's no error. Let's have a look at the terminal.
Cool, that's what we're looking for.
It looks better. Okay, as that we got to that far, just humor me for a moment.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty
Go
sure
on. Try it.
We can do this. Delete that. Put a curly brace around that, and then I think
maybe I gave up too soon when I was trying to do this.
Let me just push that to another line to see what was going on. So let's open that bracket, that bracket, that bracket. I don't think that one is needed anymore. There we go. Is that one needed? Maybe not. Let me see. It's on one line, or let me make it a bit smaller and I can see a bit better. Everyone bear with me for a moment. So it is possible. I'm 99, not sure. That one, that's it. That's the last one, right? Why is that complaining?
1, 2, 3.
Oh, I'm missing one more. There we go.
You need 3, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so I haven't got a return in there, and hopefully this works. This should have reloaded. And let's go to the terminal and see.
Fine, you win.
Yeah, I won once, like 1 out of a million
fine,
or
you
100.
Win.
Okay.
I just know people have tried this and it's been like, oh, why isn't it working? So there you go. Cool.
Let me make that a bit bigger now. Here we go. Good team effort. Good team effort.
Good team effort.
You're doing all the hard work, and I'm learning so much. So it's about time I shared something.
So let me show you something interesting before we proceed.
Okay.
So if you open up your terminal again and you stop the running process.
Okay.
If you do an npm run build, this will show you that from the get static paths, we've just done a couple of lines of code that that's showing you it's going to generate 2 dynamic routes. Oh, what's going on?
We've got one error. Build optimization failed. Found page without a React component's default
export. Oh, it's because your about page is blank.
Yes, let me delete that. My bad. So, I help with one thing and I break 100 others. My bad.
And it shows you when you do a build, all of the things that are happening. So look how, if you scroll up a little bit, it said generating pages. So you've got your page, which is the main app. And then here you've got square bracket slug. And it showed the 2 different dynamic URLs that it's created from that one function. So you can see how powerful this is. If you have 1,000 pages that you want to create, you only have to write the same amount of code. So the more users that you add to Contentful in this case, that you don't need to change any code. It's just going to create another static page. And you can't do that in React because you have to create a separate page, don't you? Technically.
I'm trying to think, but the same component, but it goes off and gets the data each time new. That's correct, though, right? I'm only just really new to React. I'm an Angular person, so
yeah. So I mean, with in my experience of React, if you wanted to create 1,000 pages, you have to actually define all the different pages and all the different routes you want. But with Next.js, it's just one function to do as many as you want.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So now let's get the data for one single user inside get static props. So I'll show you how to do this in the GraphQL Explorer first.
Okay.
You'll have to create a different query. And here we're also going to use GraphQL variables. So in what we're going to do is, first of all, I want you to add back in the avatar and the bio and stuff into the user. There we go. Lovely. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a function around this user collection that is going to take in a variable of a specific type. So if you, on line 1 after query, before the bracket, if you write get user.
Like so.
And open brackets, yep. And we're going to define a variable. We're going to get the user by slug because that's what we're using on the get static paths. So if you do $slug.
Right, okay.
And then colon, it's going to be a string with a capital S. And we want to make it required, so you put an exclamation mark at the end.
Right. You can do functions in GraphQL. Okay, I didn't know this.
Yeah. You can do even, so this is a read-only API, but in some GraphQL APIs, you can actually make mutations and do other things programmatically as well and change content. So on line 2, the user collection is going to put function brackets after the N as well. And we're going to do a where inside there. So just going to type the word where.
Right, okay.
And then colon, open squigglies.
Squigglies, I love that. I'm so going to use that from now on. I said curly, but squigglies is so much better.
We're going to do slug, colon, and then the variable $slug. So this is setting up the query to take in a slug of type string that's required. And then the user collection is going to filter the collection it receives, that it gets back by the slug that it finds. Now, how do we put in that variable? So if you open the query variables tab at the bottom left.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah, so very much like how we pass in an HTTP request, we pass in the stringified query with the body. We're also going to pass in an object of stringified variable. So if you open an object inside there.
Yeah.
And if you stringify the word slug, put quotes around it.
So literally, is it like JavaScript? Like
no, just put quotes around slug. So double quotes. In here? Slug. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Okay, I see what you mean.
And then if you do a colon and then do your Eddie slug. And then press play.
Okay, so this is just a JavaScript object, that gets passed in,
You're
right?
just getting your
one
item that way. And if you put my slug in, whitep4nth3r.
Yours is really hard to spell. I was thinking I got it open. We're good.
You'll see, we just get mine.
What happens if I make a typo on yours? Is it like a search or it's just an exact
match? It won't bring anything back.
Okay,
it's an exact match.
Okay.
The slug equals the slug. Okay, so we're going to take that query for get static props on our square bracket file.
Oh no, we have Anton in the chat. I worked with Anton for quite a few years and I would always tease him about Angular's better than React. And now he sees me doing React stuff and Graph. No!
Nothing is better than anything. They are all just different tools to do a good job.
Exactly.
Okay, take that query.
Okay, yep. All of it, including the word query as well. Okay.
Yes. Now, this is the one, when you're using it with variables in a function, you need the word query, but not in the other ones.
Okay.
So on above line 32, let's just save that query that we need.
Okay.
And here you need, that's it. Okay. And we also need to define the variables we're going to pass in. So that stays exactly as it is, but we need another const variables equals.
Is that above or below?
It doesn't matter, up to you.
Okay. Const
variables. And this is where we're going to pass in slug equals the params.slug that comes from the get static path. So if you just create an object.
Okay.
And if you do slug params.slug, exactly what Copilot is suggesting.
Always saving me.
And then if you copy the JavaScript fetch again.
Oh, yes. Got you.
All of that.
We had it up here, didn't we?
Yeah. We'll put that in. And then the only extra thing we need to do is on line 57, after the word query, we need to do comma variables, because this passes in the variables separately. So you'll see, I've actually just written a blog post on this that's not just released, but it's about, this brings type safety to your variables. You could, if you wanted, just pass in the slug as a string. That will work as well. But it's much better practice and much safer to bring type safety to your queries and ensure that you are specifying what's allowed to be executed in your GraphQL query. So now you still have response dot, your user will now be response dot data dot user collection dot item 0.
Response dot user
data. Response dot data.
Data, yeah.
Dot user collect. Ignore the dot user. Get rid of the dot user.
Okay. Sorry, the one. Which one? Sorry, this.
It's just response dot data.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Yeah. Dot user collection. Dot items. Now, whenever you're querying a collection, it still brings back an array, but we only want one item in the array, and we could even add a limit 1 to the API call if we wanted, but we know we've only got 1 because we've got it set to unique in the content model anyway. So now when you go to /eddy-jowd on the front end, you will just have that data of yours.
Oh, we're going to start it up again. I think
if it's running.
Let's see. Yeah, we did stop it. npm run dev.
There we go.
That looks like my data.
So that's just your data. And if you go to /whitepanther, whitep4nth3r.
I can't even spell my own name. So, yours has got numbers in it. Like that makes it even more difficult.
Do you know what? It took me a few months, but now I can type it without even thinking, but I got it wrong for a long time. Okay, there's my simple data. Okay. So now we've got done so let's just demonstrate how easy it is now to add an extra route. So you go back to Contentful and let's add someone else in to the entries, and then it will automatically create it for us with no extra code having to be written.
Okay, so go to content.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi Kendrick, how you doing? Kendrick saved my life when I was doing a React live stream, and we got I think it was Next.js, and I think it was my first one, and we got stuck. Came on the live stream and saved us, so that was really good.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, lifesaver. Add user. Okay, name. Tom, perfect timing. Okay, Tom's gonna go get added. So Tom, I'm gonna spell it wrong. My bad. I should have picked someone with a bit of an easier name. Right, okay, it's done the slug for us already. Eddie Hub, awesome code reviewer. Okay, media, I know Tom's GitHub off by heart, so I can do that quite easily. So actually I did pick a good example. There we go. Sorry, Tom, add new media. Title Tom, and then we'll add a link.
I don't use this add image via link enough.
I've only recently discovered like you can do it put.png after someone's username on GitHub, and it's just a lifesaver. So when they change it, I usually do right click, but when they change it, it's updated automatically. Okay, so I've hit publish.
Okay, and if you go back to your front end and do /Tom Schmelzer, you will see it's already done.
Oh no!
You might have to refresh it, but it should be okay actually.
I will have to copy it. Where is it? Here we go. So otherwise I'll make a typo. Okay, so if I do it, I'll do it without refreshing. Let's see.
There it
has
is.
Updated. Okay.
There it is. So now what I want to show you is 2 features of Next.js to make things even more fun.
Okay.
So on the index page, so we've got all our data basically.
Right.
On the index page, the same as what's on the front page of link-free right now, you want to show links to all of the different users, don't you?
Yes.
So actually on the home page, we don't need everything. We don't need the bio. So you can take bio out of the query on line 11 of get static props, which means that we are saving some bytes, but we need everything else. So to create that, we're going to just create that little grid of people, and feel free to bring some CSS in from your initial link free. But what we need to add in is, because we're going to be creating a client side link from the home page to the dynamically created single pages. And what that means is it's not a full browser refresh to get more data. It's a client-side link that makes it feel quick and snappy. And that's the whole kind of nature of the single page application ecosystem. So we're going to be using for that a dependency built with Next.js called delivered with Next.js called Next Link. So at the top of the file, if we import capital L link from next link, next/link. There we go, Copilot saves the day. And we're going to be using that to route to the slugs of each user. So what I would do in the return of the home component is let's map over the users and create a link to each one.
Okay, so I'll just do it really simple for now. We can style it up later. So I might just do something like this, if that's okay with you, and then just, I was just going to do something like this. I know I need to loop over it, but as an example, I think my React memory is correct. I can do, user dot, I don't know, name. Does that work? I know I need to loop over it, but in terms of...
So inside the UL, do open squigglies, and then do users dot map, open brackets. There you go. Item.
Where's
there you go.
You need it. And then
that's it.
That's it. Do I need to put a bracket around this or anything?
No, but you need to close the squiggly at the end, and you called it item. So you either want to change the parameter to user or do that as item.
Let's do user.
Okay. So that's going to do all three names in.
Oh, no, wrong way around. That way. There we go.
Yeah, that's going to do all three names. But what we want to do is add a link around it so we can client-side route to each one. So after the first LI...
Should we check this works?
Oh, yeah, you can, yeah.
Let's have a look.
I have confidence in you.
I don't. I was up all night watching Squid Games.
I haven't seen that yet. So there we go.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, that works.
Three names. You'll also notice that currently the way the data comes out is it's ordered in created descending.
Okay.
Or created ascending, created descending. So if you add another, you can change the order on the API. We won't bother about that now, but I'll just tell you that that's what's happening.
Okay.
So around user.name, you'll want to add the capital L link component.
Okay.
And do the href as user / user.slug.
Is it in quotes or is it in
So you'll need that, and then backticks, and then a slash, and then dollar curly's user.slug.
User.slug.
Okay, close the link, the opening link thing first.
No, not like that. It's
before the user.name. Yep. And then you also have to add an anchor tag inside the link as well. So around but just it has nothing on it. And that's where you would put your classes if you wanted to style the link.
Like so?
You don't need to put you don't put an href, you just do an A tag.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah. It's so that it offers focusability, I believe.
Got you. Okay, makes sense.
Okay, so now you have three links. They won't look like links right now because they won't be underlined, because that's the default styles that Next comes with. But if you click on them, you'll be client-side directed to each slug for each user, which is exactly what you've got on your link free right now. What I want to show you now is, I guess maybe let's do it on, let's try and recreate the homepage of Linktree. Let's put in the avatar using Next Image. Now, what Next Image does, it's another thing that comes shipped with Next.js that gives you automatic image optimization. Now, there's some funky stuff you can do with this, like adding custom image loaders, and you can then use custom image APIs if you want to transform your images not with Next. But also, this is the way you can configure this. We're not going to go too deep into this now, but the way you can configure it means that it can load different resolutions on different screens and whatnot, and provides really powerful responsiveness just with JavaScript.
Interesting. Okay, I did not know that.
It's just next/image there.
Okay,
it's pretty powerful. I still haven't completely got to the bottom of how to best use Next.js, but I use it a lot. And also, the great thing about Next.js is that it gives you lazy loading by default. So you've got loads and loads of big images on a blog post, for example. They don't load for the user until they scroll to it. And also, using Next Image prevents cumulative layout shift. That's one of the core web vitals that Google will penalize you on if all of your content is moving around the page. But using Next Image, it reserves that space for the image proportions. That's why we need height and width. And therefore, your web page is going to be ranked better with Google.
Wow, interesting. Well. Nice.
Yeah. So the way we use Next Image is, let's just put it inside the A tag before user.name. And let's just open capital I image tag.
Oh, no.
Capital I. Oh, sorry, Steve. Yeah, line 2 already imports image. Sorry about that, but never mind. We've now got 2 imports.
Oh, it did. Yes. I love this, pair programming on steroids. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, I've removed that.
And the image takes a source prop, which will be user.avatar.url.
Avatar.url.
Which we grabbed from the query. And then also we'll need a height and a width on this, which will be user.avatar.height, which we got in the query. And same with width. That one should be height.
Oh, yeah, because you said width everywhere.
I know.
Oh, it wasn't as bad as the last mess up, so that's okay. I can live with that. I'm glad you're still holding this together, so thank you so much. Don't ask me my name. I don't know what it is. Oh, now I'm doing it wrong.
And then it needs a layout prop as well. And
where's that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah.
VS Code, isn't
Sorry,
it
needs.
Let's just do layout equals intrinsic. That's all we'll need for this.
What does that mean? Intrinsic? I can't spell that.
It's the default. It's the default.
How do you spell intrinsic?
That's right, with a C. The intrinsic is, it scales down to fit the width of the container up to the image size. This will still look too big, but it just means that we don't need this image to be responsive, because on the initial design, it's really tiny. So we'll just use CSS to make it really tiny, and we don't need it to be responsive. It's just gonna be the same across all screens. So that means that Vercel or Netlify doesn't have to do that scaling and provide lots of different versions of that image, basically.
Got you.
As much as it would for responsive or something.
No, that makes sense. Krish, I don't know if I probably upload this, but I might mark the repo as archive, because this is not going to replace the Linktree project. Although we might go from React to Next in the future, but this is not this is just an example to see how to do it. And I'm learning so much; it's really interesting. But I don't want to distract people with people to make contributions to a project that we might not continue.
Cool. Now we should have our images on the homepage now.
Already? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's have a look. Oh,
I know what it is now. Okay, so this is the thing about Next Image, which is also good. So because Next Image does transformations on your images, which therefore will take up server resources wherever you're hosting it, it requires you to provide an allow list for the images that you will allow, the domains of the images you will allow to be processed. So if you go to that error, and if you click on the more info, it's right at the end of the red sentence.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, this link.
Yeah, and it handily tells you how to fix it, which we need to add something to our next config. You see that thing here? So if you copy that module.exports code, and if you go into your next.config.js, which is in the root, there we go. And then what you want to do is just get that.
Yeah,
you just want to get that images bit.
Yeah.
And you want to add the domain that the red error tells you about, which is imageassets.contentful or something like that. Images.ctfassets.net, which are the second line in the middle. Where it says host name, that's what you want to add.
I was trying to copy the link, but okay, my mistake. And then
just add that there. Yeah. And then if you stop and start the server, every time you make a change to the config, it also tells you in the dev. Yeah, it's nice that, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
I bet you that was added because everyone forgot to change to stop and start. Here we go. So now we've got our images. Nice. And we can add some CSS onto those to make them look like what you've got. I mean, you could just add some of the exact same CSS.
We used Prime React to do it. So
I don't know what that is.
It's like Bootstrap, but it's not something we have to do in this stream. I mean, again, this is just more for functionality development rather than making it look perfect. So we don't have to do that. That's fine. What I might suggest doing is when we click on this, maybe we just output some of this information again. Not styled,
let's do that. Let's do that.
Make it look prettier HTML wise, let's say. But I do like that. That is working, and that's looking good. So next we would go to, I'm guessing, this page.
Yep.
And then here we're just stringifying the user. So what we can do, it's a single user, so we don't need a UL or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We could just put, I don't know, H2, and we could go something like user. Would it just be user then the name? Would that work?
User.name, yeah.
Let's have a look. Okay, that's pretty good. And then we could put the, let me see if I can remember the image. So it was image, and it was, you know what, I'm going to cheat just to save time. I'm going for an hour and a half. Let me just copy this.
Copilot was telling you everything you needed to know.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it had the URL.
Apart from the height and the width and the layout, I guess there are 3 other things.
Okay, I'll do this because I'm even lazier than that. So user avatar URL, that would be correct, I think, still, the height and the width.
Question: should it be an H2 or should it be an H1 on this
H1.
page?
No, you're right. H1. That was just a test, just making sure everyone's awake. We don't
need to import image at the top. Yeah.
How long have you been doing Next for?
Funny story is that I was doing it a lot in my last job as a tech lead, but I wasn't doing much code. Like we had a lot of projects in Next.js, but I actually didn't really understand it. So I've only really got to grips with it this year. So I would say full speed ahead since March. And I've really been able to get deep into it because I've built a lot of projects with it and I've had a lot of different use cases to serve. I still don't feel like I've touched the surface, really. I think there's a lot more.
Wow.
I even used NextAuth the other day for one of my new websites, which
interesting.
NextAuth is a Next plugin that is connected to a variety of different auth services, including GitHub, Twitch, Twitter, Google, blah, blah, blah. And it was so easy to use. Like I added Twitch authentication to my Twitch team website so that people in the team could sign in and get backstage stuff, private stuff. And if I had to implement this auth service with Twitch on my own, it would have taken weeks, but I managed to do it in one stream. And it was such a joy to have it work. And it worked first time when I deployed it as well, which was, that never happens.
I think I saw that actually, because I remember you getting very excited that it deployed first time. I'm pretty sure I saw that. I think I was cooking or something in the background. So that's really interesting. That's actually for our link free. That is a big positive to move it to this, because then we do want to authenticate against GitHub. So that could be something quite interesting.
As we said before, the only downside with using Contentful for this is the fact that people cannot contribute unless they get added to a space, or the whole contribution system is based on someone submits an issue on GitHub and someone manually adds it in Contentful.
Got you.
And so you could do a mix of both. You could actually just bring the JSON data into this Next.js application and do this in exactly the same way with dynamic routes, but based on just that JSON file. You could do it in exactly the same way with auth and with all the other good Next.js features as well.
Okay, got you. Could also do something like with a GitHub action, when they submit their JSON file, it runs it into Contentful via
that
GitHub
you could
action.
do that with the CMA, the Content Management API. Again, that you have to make sure that you don't expose your management tokens for that, and you have a separate like server-side function to do that kind of thing. But that's also very possible. That's also very possible to really, you like that whole kind of automation CLI stuff. So that could be a cool little adventure to go on as well.
Yeah, because at the moment we're moving towards doing it via our Discord bot, because you're already authenticated in Discord, so you can set your details via that. But I know some people who might use our link free project might not be in our Discord. So in the future, we might get them to authenticate against GitHub or something. We need to have a think about it, but it's nice to discuss the various options. This is, and for other projects, I mean, this is interesting. So how long do you think it took you to do authentication?
2 hours.
So that's really impressive.
And that was me getting my head around actually what I had to add to the Twitch console and the correct values in the Twitch console. And I was able even to add like an allow list of users to add in with to only allow certain people to authorize as well on the website, really simply in the whole thing. It was really nice. I'm going to write a blog post about how I did it as well, I didn't feel like the docs helped me enough. When I reread them, they were actually better than I thought, but I was like, I'm confused. But it was a great experience, and I want to find ways to add more authentication to more things because it was a joy.
That is pretty cool. And just so everyone watching, Salma has awesome blog posts, which hopefully you'll create into videos potentially.
Yes, I've got a long list. The main thing I want to actually work on for videos is HTML fundamentals, like right back to basics, creating HTML boilerplates, understanding what each of the things in the HTML head does. Also some little tiny ones like CSS grid template areas that I discovered the power of, and what's the difference between a regular function and an arrow function in JavaScript. So I've got some longer ones and some shorter ones planned. But it's just this conference season at the moment, and it's silly busy. And I'm moving house in a few months, which is silly busy. So, but it's coming, trust me. Awesome.
Well, I'll share this link in the chat if people want to have a look at your blog, which is awesome. I need to have a read through. I'm not much of a reader, so that's why I'm asking about the videos. So
so some of them have videos on. I did a very similar thing with Jason last week that I've done with you. Awesome. I did, if you want to know more about Next.js, actually, I did a fireside chat with Netlify back in August with Cassidy Williams, and there it is. There's that one at the bottom. So there's a video of talking about the different things about Next.js. I also did a very similar thing with Colby Fayok a few weeks ago, talking about Next.js and e-commerce. There it is. Another video if you like to consume videos.
Yes. Awesome. Colby
so you can find them
funny.
all. He's lovely.
He is. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, I need to binge on your content, I think. Well, I'm maybe taking a long flight in the next few weeks. So yes, I think I'll be downloading well, it's not downloading, but like loading them up in the browser and having them ready to read and so forth. So yes, and follow along as well, which I think is always a great way to learn. Otherwise, I forget too. So this is awesome. Cool. So I have done that. So we've got the title, we've got the image, and we've got the description. I know we haven't got onto links, but I think the principle's the same. I know that it's the beginning of the week. I don't want to work you too hard and doing all the links, but the principles are the same, which I think is really interesting. And the styling would be the same as what we've done for our React. We could add the Prime React library, and then we would just use their components. So here, for example, for the image, or for here, we can wrap it in a card or I think it's what we used, and do that. So that part is, people can see from my other video. I did do a video on that actually already, a 10-minute video if people do want to see that, on creating link-free with React. Here we go, link tree clone. So that is there if people do want to see it. It's one of my more popular videos. Maybe because it's got Linktree and React in the title, I don't know.
Everyone loves a good clone as well.
Yeah, they do. I'm actually thinking of doing Pingdom and doing it as one of the EdiHub projects, because then people can have alerts for their apps and so forth, and free, because we've got the hosting space. We have an EdiHub Kubernetes cluster, so I could just deploy it to there and so forth, and maybe just what's it called when you drop off the data? I can't think what it is. Time to live, TTL. Yeah, so just keep the data for like a month or something, and then it just drops off the end. Yeah, lots of interesting projects coming up, and this is why it's so good to play with Next and so forth, to see, do we do it in React? I'm obviously been using Angular for so many years but it's not very popular. I notice when I create a project of Angular, it doesn't really get many contributions.
Yeah, I actually have one big project in Angular. It's my guitar learning website that I built. It was the first thing I was building when I started streaming. And a friend wanted to teach me Angular. So I always like to, if I want to learn something, I like to build something in it. Yeah, but I find that Angular has a very specific, very big organization need to maintain big patterns, I think. But I also built that just as Universal came out with pre-rendering. And so that's all static as well, which brings me to a question I want to ask you. Like, so you're talking about, do we build it in React? Do we build it in Next? Like, what do you see are the pros and cons of React versus Next, or what have you learned that Next brings to the table?
Okay, Tom says Angular. Yes, fine. That's only one person. I never get this. This is like amazing stats. One person finally says Angular. Thumbs up. Well, I suppose even before I get to that, I'd love to hear people's opinions in the chat. So do let us know in the chat. But even before we get to that, I think if it has Next, people get more nervous about it because they hear framework. I know people call React a framework just because they want to, it's like go fast Stripe on your car. It's as a library. So I think people like to call it a framework for the wrong reasons. But when people do hear framework, I think it scares them off a bit. So when I did have some Next projects, very basic, because I don't know much about it, it didn't get the traction that React projects did. So there's that thing just to think about. And I do want to keep the barrier to entry as low as possible as well to get more contributors. So our link free, for example, it's been going for I think 3 weeks or something, 4 weeks. I don't know how long, but not very long at all. And it's already got so many contributors, and there's I think there's over 40 pull requests that I need to go through. So apologies everyone. So there's that to consider. But I do like that Next is a framework coming from Angular. So I do like it has the routing built in. There is the performance and SEO benefits, but even just ignoring that, there being just the back end part, although it's like a lightweight back end, it's already built in. I don't need to think about Express or Next.js. So for me, that has huge benefits. And then there's the auth part that you just introduced us to as well. So again, that's like pretty amazing. Oh, and there's another one. I love this. Here we go. So it's also got the what was it called? What library did you call it? The env
it's the .env. So
.env, yeah.
This is a great question from Shopper. When you use process.env variables in Next.js, does it store the variables in the browser? Only if you prefix the variables with next underscore public underscore. Sometimes you might need to have access to those process variables in the browser to make a client-side request. But if you don't prefix them with next public, they are not exposed to the client, so they're secure.
Got you. Okay, that's really good to know. Yes, so by default, it's only for the backend stuff, but if you do make it public, you can. And don't do that for your private stuff, please, everybody.
Yeah.
So that's super interesting. I mean, hearing about the project, what are your thoughts on what were the most beneficial features that would help us, I suppose?
So I guess the bigger the... Go on. Go on. You finish your sentence.
No, I was just going to say, ignoring the back end part, assume it gets the data from an API. Like, doesn't matter where it is.
So the bigger this project gets, the more data that the front end is going to have to process and parse. With Next.js, because everything is built in the build pipeline and just served as static static pages, the bigger your website gets, it won't have any impact on performance. I'm not sure entirely how the pages are generated and how the routes are generated in your front end right now, but because Next.js is creating everything as a single HTML statically generated page, it's available like instantly, bam, 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 without any front end logic having to be processed. And so it doesn't ever become slower the bigger that it gets. That's the main thing.
That's interesting to know.
How is your front end or your different, like, is it just you have everything in a JSON file on one index, and then to get to a person, you just you traverse the JSON and you take a chunk? Or is it all kind of generated in a different way?
It's, I think, even simpler than that. So let me,
I see.
So everyone has their own JSON file, and then it's, for the home page, when the project is deployed, a list JSON file is generated. So this isn't committed. This is ignored. This is generated by a script on deployment. And then when you go to the URL, when you click on someone's name or go to the link with their URL, it just does an API call to load their specific JSON file. So the component of the page is just a skeleton wrapper, and it just makes an API request for that one user at the moment.
So there will be, so in comparison to Next.js, there will be no request need to be made on every single dynamic URL at this case. And yes, there's only a very tiny bit of data, so I can't imagine it taking very long. But if your data objects get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then things need to be processed on the client in terms of move this here, move that there, split this out here, split this out there, with Next.js, when that's done all at build time, it means that there's none of that processing time at request time.
Got you, I see. Okay. Yeah, it'd be quite interesting to do maybe a small comparison. But like you said, the data is quite small, but people's data could grow is the other thing. So I think mine is probably the biggest with the milestone section. But again, you know, if I add a few more to those, it's still quite small. But it also will be interesting to see a brief comparison. Maybe do, I was going to say Lightroom, that's for photo editing. Lighthouse by Google, just to see maybe the statistics. How does that also affect the payload, the SEO, and all those sorts of things as well?
Another tiny benefit, I guess, like if these files get really, really big. So one of the big kind of things about Contentful and using a headless CMS is like get your content out of your code and make sure that like your commits are just to do with the code and the application and not adding content. And so if these files get really, 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 really big and you're adding all of your different highlights, you could make like a mistake in the JSON here, and then you commit it and the pipeline goes wrong. With Contentful, that doesn't happen because you just add an entry. Also, that means you keep your commits free of content edits. And also, when you're in Contentful, you can set up webhooks to do a rebuild of a static site every time you publish a new entry, for example. So again, there's pros and cons, because some people like to keep this content inside their code. But as it gets bigger and as it scales, it just doesn't get realistic. Imagine you have 5,000 people on this site at some point, and it starts to feel like a little bit shaky and like, I wonder if I can make a change to the code with all of this content inside it. And then everyone has to learn how to add content in a different way and things like that. So again, pros and cons.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we are going to move this to our API. So we have done on the live stream with Carl, who was in the chat before and probably back to a meeting now, but we have done it so in EdiHub, in the bot, we can do kind of set our bios. Our image will be taken from our Discord account and so forth. So we will be moving it to an API. So though this was just a temporary solution to get going, but it just has exploded quite fast. In a few weeks. And there's been, like I said, there's been so much customization, which I think is epic. But I do like Contentful for like maybe full content rather than user specific content. Yes, there's 41 pull requests that I need to kind of go through.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, the community is doing most of it, to be honest. They're doing most of them, which is amazing. You can see already 315 have gone through, and the community has been awesome. But so we'll move this to the API to be dynamic, and then I can still do some comparisons. I think a lot of the styling can be moved between Next.js and React, especially because we're using Prime React. And it'd be good to do some interesting tests around that, pre-rendered and all the rest. So I think it is definitely going to be a super interesting comparison to do. So yes. Here's a question from Shopper, who's asked some great questions already. Why does Next.js optimize for SEO? If you put all the requirements, meta tags, let's say in React, wouldn't that be sufficient?
It optimizes it because it's a statically rendered page on the server. React will load all of those dynamic meta tags and things like that inside on the client, which means, if you've ever loaded up a web page that's built with just JavaScript or just client-side JavaScript on a slow connection or any time, you get a flash of nothing and then everything starts to load in. And technically, that's what search engine crawlers are seeing as well. Sometimes search engine crawlers see nothing on a website. And so that's not good for SEO because the search engines can't actually decipher what the page is about. And when you don't have that full meta information in there at request time. And so that's why Next.js optimizes for that, because everything is done on the build pipeline. Everything is done statically and all of the data is already there. So the search engines can get that static text document data rather than having to need JavaScript for it to load in a few seconds.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that's definitely a big bonus. And Salma, I want to ask if you could do a post for me. I want to ask people to take a screenshot and tag us on socials and add some tips that you've learned. Okay. And we'll reshare those if you add some tips. But if you don't add some tips, we'll still give it a like. So ready? We'll do a pose and people can take screenshots. I do my usual pose. Actually, let's make us full screen.
Okay.
Oh no, you won't be able to see my thumbs up. Here we go. It's better. Hopefully someone got that. I'm going to take one just in case as well. 1 second, just in case someone didn't get it. I'm going to take one as well. Let's have a look. I don't know how I can do it at the same time, but I'll do it with one hand. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Cool. I look forward to sharing that on socials as well.
Love it.
I have had so much fun, and I think everyone has learned so much. I mean, you've seen some really great positive feedback.
Great questions as well. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, really good question. I've learned so much from Salma and also from the questions that have been asked. So I really appreciate everyone asking their questions, and I appreciate Salma taking the time to go through this with us. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Give yourself a shout out as well. Mustn't forget to do that.
I always say build stuff, learn things, love what you do. Everyone learns in their own way. You can do whatever you want, learn whatever you want, however you want. Don't let anyone tell you can't. I stream on Twitch regularly. At the moment, it's twice a week. You can find me on twitch.tv/whitepanther. It's all on the website that Eddie has linked. And if you want to hang out with me, I've got a Discord as well. You can come and ask your tech problems. If you want to ask any questions about Next.js or GraphQL or anything else you're working on, you can find that on my website as well.
Awesome. I've just shared a link to your website in the chat again, but there are links in the description below. And I see you have a merch shop as well. Oh, that's so interesting.
I do. I do.
That's so cool. Okay, I'm thinking of doing a merch shop for Eddie Hub, so we might need to have a chat about that and see which ones you use.
I did a really big audit of all of them, and I managed to find one with good UX for the buyer and the seller. So I'll tell you about that.
Okay, that sounds awesome. That sounds great. Because I've done a little bit of an audit, and that was a while ago, but now I need to rethink it.
It takes a long time, yeah.
It does. Everyone, say thank you to Salma in the chat. And
thank you, everybody.
Also, do tag us on socials. I hope you've enjoyed today. I have really enjoyed today. It's been so much fun. And yes, I think it was a good place to end there. We have been going for 2 hours. Salma, if you can hang on for a few more minutes after the stream,
sure,
it'd be great, just like a thank you as well. And Rossano, thank you so much for the support. I think Rick, definitely start learning today. Open source in public, then you'll learn so much faster. Definitely get started.
True
Keep
story.
us posted. and join both communities. So if you haven't joined Eddie Hub, do. And if you haven't joined Salma's community, do as well. You can belong to multiple communities. I do have a video coming out on Free Code Camp later this week about joining multiple communities. You don't have to just belong to one. I think that's really important. There's lots of crossover, and that's why I don't know if I have it up here, but on the Eddie Hub website, we do have communities that we partner with. Salma's not on here yet, but we will get Salma and her community added.
The Claw.
The Claw.
The Claw.
Why the name The Claw?
A claw is a name of a group of panthers.
Oh, I see. Got you.
I started my Discord because people forced me to, and it was a joke, but it stuck. And so that's the Twitch team name is called The Claw. The Discord, the community is called The Claw. I'm also holding a Claw annual 2021 community awards on Halloween. So you can get the chance to nominate your favorite streamers and community members to get some recognition as well.
That's so cool. Lots of people giving you lots of love and saying thank you, which is great. And I realized I was bringing things up on my screen, but not sharing it. So yeah, on the Eddie Hub website, we have our community partners. We are going to rejig some of the criterias coming up later this year, but we also hopefully get The Claw on here as well.
Love it.
So it's great. Awesome. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great week. Have a great Monday and have a great week. I want to bring up the timer, and Salma, I'll see you in 30 seconds.
Thank you. See you, everyone.
So much again. Bye.
Bye.